welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna have a look at the second day of Advent of Code 2020. I know it comes out a bit late, but I kind of overslept this morning, so I hurried up to try to beat my boss, in which I did not quite succeed. But anyways, this was my solution, but since I wasn't really awake, counting some mistakes, errors, and yeah, so on. And at the end I will come back and we'll try to optimize it and see if we can make it a bit more easy on the eyes. But until then, this is gonna be a voiceover since I forgot to turn my mic on. So let's get to it. But basically, today's problem was to find out or help out with validating a password in the first part. So you get a list, as you can see there in the example output, with a number, dash, another number, space, and a character, colon, dash, and then some letters. And basically what we're gonna do is between the first number and the number after the dash is the number of times the character in the middle is supposed to be showing in the password. So for the first one, A should be shown somewhere between 1 and 3 times. In the middle one, B should be present 1 to 3 times, and in the last one, C should be 2 to 9 times. So basically the first and last one over there is the ones that's valid, and the middle one is invalid. So at first, let us have a quick little peek at the input that we're getting and try to handle that. In the constructor, I'm going to store it in a global array of type string, so I can use it in both methods for solve part 1 and part 2. Some of you may recognize this, because I'm using a templating framework that I will be linking down below if you want to check it out. So far, I've only tried it this year and it seems pretty nice. So let's move on to trying to solve the first part. And I'm gonna initiate a counter there at the top just to keep track of how many valid passwords I find. After that, I'm just gonna iterate over the array of passwords that we get and try to see which ones are valid. So first of all, I need to know what the minimum and maximum amount of times where the character can occur is, and I'm gonna do that by first doing a split where on space for the entire row, where I separate the num-num part, the character part, and the password itself. After that, it's time to find out how to get the first and second numbers, and I figure out that I can store it in an int value for minimum and an int value for max, or high I think I called it. Indeed I did, which I grabbed just like that. After that, I'm trying to get the character, which is gonna be very similar to how I grabbed the nums part with the limitations, where the only difference is that I'm gonna grab the first index, since it's gonna be the second element returned in the array after the split. And since I don't want a colon, I substring that by grabbing the first index of that substring, which would be the character that we're looking for. And lastly, I'll try to get the password. Running a quick debug just to see that I get everything I want. And so it would seem. Fantastic. Just double checking everything and we're golden. Now let's just double check actually what we're looking for, and it's, yeah, as I said, trying to see how many times the character occurs. So let's iterate through the password and see if the character is the letter we're looking for, and if it is, increment the variable that keeps track of how many times it occurs. And if it is between the highest and the low, then it's a valid password. And at the end, just return the valid passwords. And we're gonna get a number, gonna input it into Advent of Code, and it failed. Of course it did. I wasn't awake at this part quite yet. So I'm quite baffled at this moment. I'm gonna go back, try to see if I missed anything. And after I realize I don't, I will go back to the code and see what went wrong. And pretty soon I realized that I forgot to do high and minimum values inclusive, so just slap on a little less than or equal to and more than or equal to, and we get another number to input into Advent of Code, and voila, it worked. So on to part 2. And in this part it's pretty much the same thing, but the elf realizes he was wrong in how the passwords were validated, so it's not between those indexes, it's, well, indexes. So the given character should be either in the first or in the last index, not in both. So let's just copy this part over to solve part 2, and then we're gonna edit it a small bit, just to, instead of count characters, check if it is in the first or in the second position. So as you can see, I wrote my -1 and high -1 in the if statement. That's because in the problem set they specified that the elf's data system starts with indexes at 1 and not at 0. And the observant ones will realize that's wrongly typed. It should be +1, and I will realize this pretty soon as well. Because I got a wrong answer, and there we go. I try to run it again, get a new answer, type it in. It was too recently, so let's just input it once more, and it was wrong again. At this point I'm quite confused about what it could be, and it's basically just, well, partly because I didn't iterate over the password, I tried to iterate over the row. But then we get this lovely index out of bounds error. And I'm gonna be struggling with this for a while, so let's just jump ahead a little bit. So basically what I think solved that issue was that I didn't account for indexes being out of bounds. And what I mean by that is that the limitations, or the indexes where you need to find those characters, could be outside the length of the password itself. So a few more if statements and we were golden. So run it again, new number, and we're done. So with that, let me turn over to myself in real time this time, and let's see if we can perhaps clean up the code a little bit. So basically, now we're back, and at this point it's getting quite late and I'm honestly too tired to actually do some major optimization, but let's at least see if we can clean up a little bit. This first part looks kind of okay, but in the second part at least there's a lot of if statements. Let's see if we can get rid of some of those. First one that's quite obvious that I could see is, let's try to get rid of that and do perhaps like so. And we have our control answers down here just to compare to, so it should still be 472 and indeed it was. So that's all good. And let's change this little thing into perhaps something like should also work. Let's leave that for now. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's a little bit better. And let's see if maybe we can get rid of some if statements here as well. Let's try something like this. And that's probably clear as it is. Except for that, I think it looks a little bit cleaner at the moment. Yeah, so let's look a little bit at efficiency. And the first solution, well, first let's see if it still works. And indeed it does. So let's look at efficiency. It creates a copy, it iterates through the array once. Yeah, this seems like a quite linear solution. Actually, let's see. Considering that if the letter count exceeds the highest allowed point, it probably should break, since then we wouldn't really care about how many more characters there is. So let's just add if letter count is more than high, then break. Like so, and that should still work. So we're expecting 640 for the first one. There we are. And probably we should do something similar for this as well. Maybe not. This is actually just a linear loop, iterating through all the passwords once, and it only checks 2 positions. So yeah. Well, it's probably everything I'm gonna put out for time on this problem set. So let me know what you think, and if you have any feedback or anything you think I could do better, then please let me know in the comments below. So until tomorrow, have a nice day, and we'll see you bright and early.